Welcome to the Pathfinder Legacy Podcast, where we help farmers, ranchers, and business owners create a seamless transition plan for the future. From retirement to ownership transfer, we protect what you've built and guide you every step of the way.
Hello all. Welcome back to the Pathfinder Legacy Podcast, where we talk farm and business succession without the fluff. I'm your host, Heidi Olson, where I'll guide you through tough conversations, transition decisions, and everything in between. We're starting right where most families don't, at the beginning. Today's episode is a special one for me, not because we're talking about farming, 4-H, and small town life, but because my guests are two of my very favorites. They're fifth-generation kids raised on our family farm. They've spent their summers showing sheep, their falls running through cross-country courses, and their evenings helping Dad in the shop or in the field. They've hauled buckets, trimmed trees, pulled weeds, and learned how to run a business long before most kids their age even got a first job application. So join me as we sit down with my daughters, Marv and Ole, to talk about what it's really like growing up in a rural community, to be a part of a legacy that's more than 100 years in the making, and to learn skills that last a lifetime. Welcome, ladies. Tell us more about you, your background, and your family.
Hi, I'm Marv. I am 20 years old. I'm a junior in college, and I'm going to nursing school.
All right.
I'm Ole, and I'm 17, and I'm a senior in high school.
All right. Well, welcome. Excited to have you both on the show today. So we're going to get started a little bit and talk. We have a little bit of a rain delay, right? So, and Dad needs your help here in a couple minutes to finish putting the combine back together. So the other day, Ole, you and I made a quick trip, mission accomplished, to go get the parts that Dad needed. We were up with the chickens, if you will, got it and made it back in time. So now you're going to be helping him put the combine back together. So hopefully once it dries out, we'll be able to get back into the field. So while you've got a little bit of a break before Dad calls and needs your help, let's ask a couple questions about the two of you and what your roles have been growing up on the farm. All right. So this first one is for you, Ole. What's your earliest memory on the farm?
Sitting with Dad in the buddy seat in the combine and annoying the heck out of him with all of my questions.
What type of questions? What's one that comes to mind? What's one of your all-time favorite questions you would always ask him?
I'd ask him what we're combining, and I'd ask him about all the different fields that were around us and what they are and what they're used for.
Yep, all the different commodities. You were wanting to learn everything, just like his little mini agronomist.
Yes.
All right, Marv, what would you describe what it's like to grow up 5 generations deep into a family farm?
I would describe it being pretty amazing. Not very many people can say that they are the 5th generation on their family farm and that it is still running just as smooth, if not better, than when it did when they came over and homesteaded. Our family farm has been around for many generations, and it is pretty cool to experience and watch the farm grow from the different kinds of equipment that we've used and how everything has just gotten better, especially with new technology, and keeping the land the same by rotating crops is what Dad would do. So that way we wouldn't have to summer follow anymore. So that's definitely something that has been an experience growing up on a family farm.
All right. You've seen a lot of changes and you hear Dad and I talk about these every day. So what we can do better. They're not making any more farmland, but what can we do to keep growing and make a living? All right. Ole, what chores did you dread and which ones did you secretly enjoy?
I secretly enjoyed driving the grain cart, even though sometimes it does get a little bit boring waiting to be dumped on, but it's always fun because you get to read your book or take a nap. That was always enjoyable. I secretly dreaded picking rocks. I hated picking rocks.
Rocks. And every spring, it seemed like no matter what, the frost would push up more rocks and you guys were busy again. All right. Marv, what does home mean to you when you think about the farm?
I think it means something that I can always come back to no matter where I am. It's always there. It's definitely a place that has taught me most important lessons in life, something that I could never learn if I didn't grow up on a farm. especially a fifth generation one, and means all the family that's around, because grandpa would work with us and dad, and then both me and Ole would work together. So that's what home means to me, working on a farm.
Okay. All right. Now, growing up on the farm, you two, we didn't have much for livestock on the farm, or mostly commodities that we were raising, small grains and pulse crops. But you also did have the opportunity to have livestock. And Ole, why don't you talk a little bit about what you showed for 4-H and any fun or chaotic memories?
I showed Hampshire cross lambs. They were always so fun. I always got excited to get them in the spring, and I had them till the end of summer. They were my favorite thing to do in the summer because they were like my little babies. They turned into dogs because they were so tame by the end. But we did have a chaotic memory at the state fair when we let them out in this arena, and then someone forgot to shut the gate, and they got loose on the state fairgrounds. We finally caught them in the horse barn.
Did you have to send the posse out looking for them?
No, they were just running around, and people were wondering what the heck was happening.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yep. Never a dull moment when you have livestock. All right,
No.
Marv, what has showing livestock taught you about responsibility?
Yeah, it has taught me that no matter what the weather is, you always have to take care of your animal. Just because it's cold outside doesn't mean that you can skip doing your chores. You still have to make it out there and break water and take care of them. And even if I'd come home from practice running 8 miles, I'd still have to come home and walk the sheep no matter how tired I was. So it's definitely taught me responsibility, that something else is depending on you and you can't let them down. Otherwise, they're not going to survive.
Right. Right. Yep. Absolutely. And how many times in the spring when we would have those spring snowstorms and we don't have electric waters, so you girls were out filling water buckets or breaking ice. So
we'd have to put our snow pants on and hike all the way up the hill in drifts and everything.
Yeah.
Right. Right. Nope. It was always good experience, and you knew that you had to take care of someone more than just yourself, and what it was like to have that responsibility. Now, growing up in a rural community, you both were very involved in sports as well. So, Ole, one of your favorite sports is what?
Cross country.
Cross country? All right. So, talk a little bit about running track and how that shaped you into the individual that you are today.
It made me very responsible and gave me time management on how I get stuff done, especially with school. Playing a sport, and you're gone all day with track too, because it's an all day thing. And so you have to plan on when you're going to get your homework done. And if you're on a test day, you have to figure that out too. So,
So you've really had to learn how to manage your time wisely. And you've learned as well that there are many other people perhaps counting on you at the same time, the rest of your teammates. Yes. All right. Marv, you also ran cross country and track. What's the difference between being an athlete in a rural community versus a big city?
Yeah, there's definitely a big difference. Being in a rural community, we ran a lot of gravel roads. So you'd run by different people's houses that you knew from being in the area, and the bus would practically drive us almost back out to our house, drop us off, and make us run into town. And then we also would run on concrete too, but running track and cross country in the city, we had a lot of concrete and pavement that we ran on. And a lot of those kids didn't understand that you can run on gravel too and be just as good. And it's not better for your body than running on concrete and pavement.
Because you did run your freshman year of college when you first went. You ran, and then all the miles that it was just really hard on your body, really physically, because then at that point you were running on more concrete pavement versus what you were used to was running more on the countryside. But you've definitely have learned a lot in the differences with how they grew up with practices versus what you had for practice. Okay.
Yes, definitely.
All right. So now we're in the season of harvest, and we're just getting going. We've been busy ramping up, getting bins cleaned out, the equipment ready, and so forth. So each year for spring's work or for harvest, why don't you both take this question and Ole, if you'll go first, what role did you play during planting season and then harvest season?
My role was helping lift the fertilizer bags up to Dad, and then he'd dump them in the cart. That was my job during planting season. And then harvest, when I was younger, my job was to unload the trucks into the bin.
Okay. Okay. All right, Marv.
My job was basically just toting Dad around from field to field and making sure he had everything that he needed, whether that was me helping him unload the grain from the truck into the air seeder or helping him dump the fertilizer bags into the air seeder. And then for harvest, my main job was running grain cart.
Okay. All right. And talk a little bit about the first experience that you had running grain cart. Because were you running by eyesight, or did you have just having to gauge where you were at, or did you have any technology helping you with that?
So Dad, when he first told me I was going to run grain cart, he said he'd set up the auto steer so I didn't have to try and drive it in a straight line and risk hitting the header with the tire. But it never ended up working like that. And he kind of just threw me to the wolves and just said, just go straight, keep looking back, make sure you don't hit the tire, and you find a line of the stubble in the field and you just aim your tractor on that line and you just drive straight.
Okay.
So it worked out for the best. It kind of taught me that, you kind of have to teach yourself things too. You got to believe in yourself. So.
Mm-hmm. And you can't always rely on technology because you just never know when it might not work.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. All right. So now this next question is for both of you again. What do you remember about helping Dad in the tractor or the combine? So expand on that a little bit more.
I would say helping him in the tractor or the combine, I'd ask him how things worked. How does this work? How do you do this? Why do you do that? I'm sure he was tired of both of our questioning all the time. And especially in the tractor too, it was a lot of, he taught us how to do the things, but a lot of it was things you had to learn on your own. So learning how to shift or when to downshift in the tractor so you don't put it into neutral. Those were definitely things you had to learn on your own.
Mm-hmm.
And not everything was always taught.
Right. Do you have a quick story just that you had weather coming in? And do you remember running through the field?
Yes. So Ole here she had left and went home. And so it was just me and Dad out in the field and we were combining peas. And I kept telling him, I said, Dad, the storm's coming in. We better get back here. And he's like, no, let me just finish. So we ended up finishing and he dumped what he had on the combine onto the grain cart. And he's like, head on back to the trucks. We have to tarp everything. And at this point, the storm had come full bore and I was windshield wipers on full blast and so dark, hard to see anything. And I'm going across the field and I knew there was a waterway coming up and I was just trying to slow down for it when I could see it. Well, I didn't slow down. I was going 10 miles an hour across the field. And so I jumped the waterway and put the tractor into neutral. And I looked back and I just prayed Dad didn't see that and yell at me for putting his tractor into neutral. But we finally got back to the trucks and got everything tarped before everything got too wet. So.
All right. Good. And there was no harm done. Everything was fine, but
everything was fine.
You made it back, but you had something to tell Dad later when maybe he wouldn't have been too upset. How about you, Ole? Any favorite memories that you have to date of helping Dad?
When she left for college, it was my job to drive the grain cart. And last year was my first year. And I was pulling up to the truck and I got too close. And I was like, oh crap. So what do I do? And I got stuck. I wasn't going to move it. Otherwise, I was going to hit the truck. So I called Dad and he comes over and he's like, don't ever do this. And he starts backing up the grain car. And I would never do that.
He's probably the best backwards driver you've ever seen, huh?
Yeah, he's like tomato.
Yes.
All right. Well, definitely some good memories and some things that have taken you skills for you to use, not only just in your daily lives, but once you graduate and as you become adults and find your way in the world. So these skills that you've learned are probably the skills that most other kids or your peers don't have. So, Marv, can you describe a time that you used a skill that you learned on the farm that may have surprised your friends or teachers, whether it was in high school or college?
Yeah. So growing up on a farm, you can't really be afraid of mice or snakes. It's a part of it. You're going to always find mice, especially being on a grain farm. They're always going to be there. So I was never really afraid of mice. I'd pick them up with my bare hands and, dispose of them, kill them with whatever I could find. And there was a mouse in high school, my senior year. I saw kids kicking it around the hallway and I thought it was a prank, that it was a fake mouse. And I go over there and I pick it up, but it was real. And so I went and threw it outside and the office ladies pulled me in and they're like, what were you throwing out? And I told them, I said, well, it was a mouse. And they all freaked out that I picked up a mouse with my bare hands.
It was dead. It wasn't going to hurt you.
It was dead. It was harmless.
All right. Ole, what's something that you know how to do that your peers probably do not?
Probably driving the Bobcat and helping Dad with anything that he needs help with the Bobcat, and then driving a grain cart and shoveling grain. I don't think any of my peers have ever been inside a grain bin. So,
Right. Well, and all the things that you learn to do and what not to do to create extra dust, or so you're not wrecking equipment or creating more work and when we're already busy enough, you've learned how to be precise and have common sense to pay attention to what Dad wants. And he talks about using a lot of hand signals. You would have thought he was like an ump or something, because he's constantly using hand signals.
yeah, it's funny because when we're loading trucks, he'll be signaling something to me and the truck driver's like, oh, okay, it means this. But then I go and do what he wants. And the truck driver's like, that's not what I was going to do.
Yep. You just know, what he's asking for. So also, you think about your dad is by trade, he's a teacher. So he's always been teaching you girls since you were, old enough to walk, and not giving you the answers to everything, right? He always makes you think about it. He doesn't give you the answers. And sometimes it drives you nuts, but you definitely know why he's doing that way, being that teacher instinct to make you think. So not only on the farm, but Dad does a lot of woodworking. So he's our resident carpenter as well. So he's had both of you make some sort of woodworking projects for 4-H, or just things that we've needed on the farm. And this is a question for both of you. What was your first woodworking experience with Dad, and what project did you make?
My first woodworking experience, I think I was probably in 3rd, 4th grade, and it was a 2-step stool. And then it had my name and a decal on the top of it. And that was a really cool experience. It was an easy enough project for someone my age to do it at the time, but it was cool. Dad made sure that I used all the tools and I knew how to use them and knew what they were and what they were called and why we used them. And then, of course, I painted it purple, because who doesn't love a purple stool?
That's right. All right. And then on the other end of the spectrum, as you got older, did you do more difficult projects that he's had you do?
Yes, I did a lot more difficult projects. I made a twisted shelf where the shelf kind of twists as it goes down. I made my bed back here. A lot of different projects that him and I worked on together. Some definitely head scratcher ones where we have to sit there and think about, well, how are we going to make that work? And somehow in the end, we always figure it out, or Dad always figures it out. But
Right. Helping you right there so he can teach. All right. How about for you, Ole?
My first woodworking project is probably a stool too. It has my name on the top. It's only 1 step, and I painted it like a powder blue color.
Okay. All right. And you've also had other more larger projects on a larger scale that you've done with Dad as well.
Yes. It was just a regular mirror, and then we found this wood. Where'd you get the wood? We got the wood somewhere.
Yeah, it was like a live edge river wood that it looked like. So so you had to figure out how to put it together and make it look, so you had a frame around it.
Yes.
Yeah, cool. All right. So definitely a lot of skills that you've had to learn over the years. And what would you say was the best thing that you learned in the wood shop with Dad?
I'd say how to read a tape measure. Not many people know how to read a tape measure anymore, or can do quick math like that. And that's definitely a skill that I've used as I've gotten older that many people are like, you know how to read a tape measure? And so it's a pretty cool skill to say that I can read a tape measure.
There you go. All right. How about for you, Ole?
Running all the saws. And even though his hands are there to guide you, we still got to do it. So
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty cool.
Yep. And nobody's lost any fingers. You all still have
Nope,
10
not
fingers.
yet.
All right. So, also we live in a yard that has a lot of trees. So Grandpa, your great grandpa, he was a conservationist. So he planted a lot of trees around. We're thankful for that. But with that comes a lot of maintenance and work. So with the yard work and trimming trees and so forth. So tell us what your most ridiculous or memorable outdoor job was that you've ever been assigned.
I'd say my most ridiculous one was Dad had this contraption to catch mice and they'd land in this bottom of this 5-gallon bucket with antifreeze. So my job was to go around with an ice cream pail and an ice fishing ice scoop and scoop up all of the dead mice and put them in the bucket. And yeah, that was probably my most ridiculous job.
All right. How about for you, Ole?
My most ridiculous job was having a shop vac, and because someone would overfill a bin or something, so there'd be a little bit of grain on the ground, and I'd have to go around with a shop vac and suck up all of the grain that was in the grass because you couldn't get it with a shovel or a rake. So you'd have to suck it up. So.
Right. And for those listening that haven't been around the smell of grain that is just sitting and rotten, I mean, would you compare that to the smell of a skunk or a rotten animal? It's just...
I'd say it's worse. It's the kind of smell that takes your breath away. It's so bad.
You'll never forget.
Once you smelt it. Yeah, you will never forget it once you smelt it.
It's definitely memorable. All right. So also growing up on the farm, you've learned a lot of business lessons being on the farm life. You've been around. Me as a former banker, both Dad and I are very business orientated. So we've always talked about things on what's going on with the farm, where the economics, the markets and so forth. So Marv, talk about what you learned about how a business operates just by living on the farm and being around, hearing us talk.
I'd say business is not always on the ups. There's ups and downs, just like the grain market is ups and downs. So it's deciding when to sell and how much to sell. And that's something that I've definitely watched Dad and witnessed him selling grain, and when to buy new equipment and when to sell it. When's the best? There's always a good time for everything. And that's part of being business minded, is you have to wait for the right time. You can't be greedy and buy whatever you want just because you have the money for it. It's waiting for the right time and the right opportunity and being patient. And that's definitely something that I've learned growing up on a farm and having both business minded parents, is you have to be patient and wait for it to come to you.
Right.
So
great. Yep. Very much so. All right, Ole, have your experiences changed how you think about money, work ethic, or ownership? Your experiences growing up on the farm and being around the business side of it?
Yes, it gave me a great work ethic compared to some other people. When you get a job, you'll see the difference. And it gave me where I could start something without someone telling me to do it. I could just do it and see that it needed to be done, and I would go and do it. And it gave me money management. So don't just go spend all of your money because you have it. You have to save it and use it for stuff that you need in the future.
Right. So girls, do you think growing up in this way has prepared you for a future in or out of agriculture? I mean, the experiences that you've had, we've also done a little bit of traveling and so forth. So it hasn't been all work and no play, but, teaching you as much as possible about the world and how it operates. So do you think growing up this way has prepared you for a future? And tell us a little bit more about that.
yeah, I think for sure it has kind of helped sculpt us as a person to, if we come back and want to work, on the farm or end up marrying a farmer or a rancher, it's definitely prepared us for that life, because it's not an easy life. It's definitely something that takes a lot of work, but there's also high reward out of it too. So that's something that I think has prepared us for our future too, is working and living on a farm.
Okay. Yeah. Very good. Very good advice. How about for you, Ole? Anything that you want to add in?
No, she pretty much said it all.
She wrapped it up for you, being the
Yeah.
older sister. All right. Okay. So looking back and, looking ahead, Marv, what's something you didn't appreciate as a kid that you're grateful for now?
I definitely say that in the summers, it was hard to get away from the farm because, there's a lot of things that needed to be done before winter came and before harvest came. So it's definitely something that I kind of struggled with. But looking back on it, it's taught me so much. It's taught me, responsibility. It's taught me that not everything is easy in life, that you have to work for what you have. And I mean, yes, there was times I still got to go out and hang out with my friends, but it made me a responsible adult because I had work that I needed to be done and chores that needed to be done instead of going out and just hanging out with my friends, not doing anything all summer. So,
Okay. All right. And Ole, how do you think growing up here will shape the kind of adult that you'll be? 8 months, you're going to be 18. You're going to be able to vote and you'll have all the things that you'll be responsible for as an adult. How do you think growing up on the farm has shaped you to be the best adult that you could be?
It gave me a work ethic that most people that haven't grown up on a farm, they don't have that because I've never had to do any of the things that I have had to do. And so when I go into a job, I'm going to be able to do the things that they're telling me I need to do, and I'll be able to see things that haven't been done yet, and I'll go do them because if I'm not doing anything at the moment, I'll go do something else. I'll always find something else to do, and I won't just sit there and not do anything.
Mm-hmm. Yep, exactly. That's something as a former manager that I can appreciate, and you guys have probably heard me talk about this as well, is that you shouldn't always have to ask somebody to work if they should be able to look around and see what needs to be done. And the farm, as entrepreneurs, we have to be able to do that for ourselves. So that's what we've tried to instill into you two as well, to be the best that you can be and be mindful of your peers around you and teamwork. So as we wrap up, what legacy do you think you're a part of, and what do you want to add to that legacy?
I'd say we're part of a pretty great legacy. It's a farm that's been in the family for years and years. And yes, things have changed, but the ground is still the same. It's still producing great crop. It hasn't gone downhill because of the operators that have been on this farm. And it's definitely a farm through hard work and good business skills that's going to last the next generation, and something that I can show my kids to and bring my kids, and they can experience the legacy that was left behind.
Okay. All right. Ole, anything that you want to add?
No. She says it all. I don't have to say anything else.
She just took the words right off the top of your head, didn't she?
Yep, that's what big sisters are for.
All right. Well, teamwork makes the dream work. All right. At the end of the day, growing up on a farm isn't just about chores, livestock shows, or even harvest season. It's about learning resilience, working together, and being part of something bigger than yourself. And if you're lucky, like I am, it's about sharing that legacy with the next generation. Thanks for joining me today on the Pathfinder Legacy Podcast. If you'd like to connect with me, you can find me at pathfinderlegacy.com. Until next time, we'll see you between the ditches.
Thanks for listening to the Pathfinder Legacy Podcast, where your future is our focus. Be sure to subscribe, follow us on social media, and visit us at pathfinderlegacy.com to start building your transition plan today.